Salvete omnes, and welcome to Land and Sea Section 10. This one, the last of the Land and Sea sections, the fifth part of Hannibal's crossing of the Alps. It does not follow on directly from last time. This is the intervening section, which you can read for yourself. Basically, short version, crossing the Alps is hard. Who knew? At last, with the hominibus, the men and beasts, having been exhausted in vain. Phagatis is a perfect passive participle, and it is here part of an ablative absolute, with this having happened. The camp was set up on the ridge. This really should be posita sunt, it's the main verb. In a, or with a, or after the place had been cleared. So here we've got another ablative absolute going on. After the place had been cleared, ad id for this purpose, or in this case ad id ipsum, for that very purpose. Aigerame literally is something like very poorly. Aiger is ill or sick, but it can also mean bad in the sense of quality. So here aigerame is with immense difficulty. You can kind of imagine that digging out a lot of snow would be very hard work. There was so much snow literally needing to be dug out. These are both gerundives of obligation. They're not on the GCSE spec. You don't need to know exactly how they work yet. So I've tried to translate it a little bit better, which is there was so much snow that had to be dug out and removed. So immediately, this section we're setting out how difficult even just resting was. After that, the soldiers were instructed to literally to fortify or build up the rock. I'm going to explain why that is the way to phrase to make passable in a second. Across quam unam here, I've translated as the one section of which. Literally it's across which one, but it's quite difficult to translate that. So across the one section of which a road potterat was able, just esse is just to be or to exist. Could translate this as across which a path could exist. I try to add in made here to make it a bit more sense. Since the Saxon, the stone, literally was needing to be cut, or had to be cut, in the sense of there's big boulders in the way that they need to sort of break up so people can actually get past them, they make, literally, as a historic present, so they made a huge pile, an ingentem pile of wood from the trees Kirka around there. What kind of trees are they? They are the immanibus trees, the huge trees, immense trees. Deictis and detruncatis are both perfect passive participles describing the trees which were felled and chopped up, or which had been felled. So this is the Roman road, admittedly, rather than a Carthaginian one, but the basic principle applies. The road is raised up, it's built up, because you want to have the ditches on the side so the rain can drain off of it. Obviously that's not what the Carthaginians are really worried about right now. They've got bigger problems on their mind than a bit of rain, but it's just the Roman phrase to make it passable something. Incidentally, it's also the origin of the word highway, because quite often the road is literally higher than the surrounding area because you want it to be able to drain off. And when the force of the wind also, et obviously normally means and, occasionally it means also in the sense of like and in addition. Quota esset had risen up. I haven't noted this, but cum and quota esset is part of a cum clause when this had happened. Oh, and apta literally means having been made suitable, but it's very common as an adverb, suitably, for the making of a fire. This is a gerundive of attraction. Do not worry about it, just learn that it means for the making of a fire. They lit it from below. They lit it, am is the it, the struem, the pile of wood from the previous sentence. Suk, kendo, really should be sub, but the sound changed, so they lit it from below. With akito, vinegar, poured on top, infuso, they putrefaciunt, so more historic presence, they softened the saxa ardeientaque. They softened the heated rock, or the burning rock even. Fire setting is what's going on here. Really cool thing that I did not know about. Basically, setting a big fire either underneath, ideally, or against the face of the rock, and basically you heat it until it can't take it anymore and shatters, or is just a lot softer. They will also pour water on it to to quicken up the cycle in which you can do this. The Carthaginians are doing an even more cool trick, which is the rocks here are mostly limestone, so that they are getting a nice, very cool chemical reaction by pouring vinegar, which is an acid, onto hot limestone. It's just completely dissolving it very vigorously. The vinegar is just as a cheap wine. It's not actually going to be very alcoholic, because the fermentation process that turns wine into vinegar removes most of the alcohol and makes it into acidic acid. The things you learn, eh? In this way, Ita, they split open the rock. And what kind of rock is it? It is rock which is torridam, hot from fire. And how are they doing this? They are doing it with iron. Literally just with iron. With iron tools is a nice way to translate this. So notice here we have two different ablatives. It's quite nice. We've got the ablative incendio. It's hot from the fire. And then we've got with the tools. So that's how they're doing something. So that's why it's hot, and that's how they're doing it. There you go. And they literally softened, made milder, the kliwos, the slopes, by modicis, moderate or small zigzags is the easiest way to translate that, so that not only non-solemn, we've had this before, not only the baggage animals or beasts, but even, said Etienne, the elephants were able to be or could be led down. Deduki is a passive present infinitive. So, image here very strongly. You know, there are lots of hard work and ingenuity. They're making the slope down the mountain. Slopes down mountain. This one in Greece, which is apparently follows the route of an ancient version of the same thing. They literally just paved over it, more or less. And this is actually in the Alps. I couldn't entirely work out where. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. Sorry for the stock photo business, but this is actually a bit of the Alps where they've got this super steep zigzag to try and get down the side of the mountain. So imagine this, but in, like, November. And snow is everywhere, and you don't actually know where you're going, and there's a strong possibility that you get to the bottom, and you realise you can't actually keep going in that direction. You have to get all the way back up to the top and find another path, because that's already happened to them once. You can imagine that this is not an easy trip. And that is the entirety of section 10. Very much sort of the ingenuity, emphasising the difficulty of the trip, but also how great a leader Hannibal is. You might reasonably at this stage start to consider what is the main themes of the land and sea section. You know, Pliny is all about getting to the province, and again it's a fairly difficult journey, both by land and by sea. Caesar is getting across the sea onto the land, and it's a difficult journey, partially due to the weather, but also heavily due to, you know, the opposition, the Britons. And Hannibal, well, he's crossing the land, no sea involved here, but what is making it difficult is purely the weather, the climate, the terrain. There's no opposition in that sense. Hopefully that all makes sense and is useful for you. Thank you very much.